You used to have ideas that kept you up at night. Real ideas. The kind that made you grab a notebook at 2 a.m. because your mind was connecting dots in ways that felt electric. Original yours. When's the last time that happened? If you can't remember, you're not losing your mind. You're experiencing something far more insidious. Intellectual atrophy. And it's not your fault. Let me paint a picture of your day, and tell me if this sounds familiar. You wake up, and within minutes, maybe seconds, you're scrolling. Reading headlines, skimming articles, consuming hot takes about everything from productivity hacks to philosophy. You tell yourself you're learning, staying informed, feeding your curious mind. But here's what's really happening. You're outsourcing your thinking to algorithms designed to keep you consuming, not creating. You read brilliant insights from others and feel that familiar pang. I could have thought of that, but could you? When's the last time you sat with a half-formed thought long enough to let it breathe, evolve, become something uniquely yours? You're intellectually hungry, but you're eating junk food. Twitter threads instead of sustained contemplation. YouTube explanations instead of wrestling with concepts yourself. Book summaries instead of the slow, transformative work of deep reading. You're consuming more information than any human in history, yet feeling less intellectually alive than ever. And the worst part, you know something's wrong. Catch yourself reaching for your phone when a challenging thought emerges. You notice how hard it's become to think without immediately Googling for answers. You feel your attention fracturing, your capacity for original thought withering like a muscle you've forgotten how to use. Here's what's actually happening to your brain, and why understanding this changes everything. You're not experiencing intellectual decline. You're experiencing intellectual displacement. Neuroscientist Merlin Donald identified 3 stages of human cognitive evolution. First, mimetic culture learning through imitation. Then, mythic culture storytelling and shared meaning-making. Finally, theoretic culture, abstract thinking, hypothesis formation is a kind of deep intellectual work that built civilizations. But here's the kicker. The digital age has created a 4th stage that Donald never predicted. I call it consumptive culture, where we've become so efficient at accessing other people's thoughts that we've lost the neural pathways for generating our own. Your brain, designed for deep thinking, has been hijacked by what I call the infinite input loop. Every time you feel the friction of not knowing something, instead of sitting with that discomfort, the very discomfort that births original thought, you reach for your phone. The algorithm feeds you an answer, and that neural pathway for sustained thinking atrophies a little more. Think about it. When Aristotle had a question about the nature of reality, he had to think. When Darwin wondered about species variation, he had to observe, hypothesize, test. When Virginia Woolf explored consciousness, she had to dive into the depths of her own mind. They had no choice but to develop their intellectual muscles through struggle. You have infinite answers at your fingertips, which means you've lost the sacred friction that forces deep thought. It's not laziness, it's environmental conditioning. Your brain is adapting perfectly to an environment that rewards quick consumption over slow creation. But here's the hope. Intellectual atrophy is reversible. The same neuroplasticity that allowed your brain to adapt to digital consumption can help you rebuild your capacity for original thought. You're not broken, you're displaced. And displacement can be corrected. Step 1. Create sacred friction. The resistance protocol. The first step is deliberately reintroducing friction into your thinking process. I want you to implement what I call the 24-hour marination rule. When you encounter a question, problem, or interesting concept, resist the urge to immediately Google it. Instead, write it down and commit to thinking about it for 24 hours before seeking external input. Here's why this works. Your brain needs time to form neural pathways around new concepts. When you immediately consume someone else's answer, you're essentially performing intellectual outsourcing. But when you sit with uncertainty, your mind starts making connections, drawing from your unique experiences and knowledge base. Let me give you a concrete example. Last month, I wondered why certain songs make me feel nostalgic, even when I've never heard them before. Instead of immediately researching nostalgic music psychology, I spent 3 days thinking about it. I considered my childhood, the relationship between melody and memory, the evolutionary purpose of nostalgia. By the time I researched it, I had developed my own theoretical framework, which was different from, but informed by, the existing research. The result, original thinking, not just consumption. Start small. Pick one question that emerges naturally in your day. It's why do I procrastinate on projects I'm excited about? Or what makes some conversations energizing and others draining? Write it down. Think about it during your commute, your shower, your walk. Let your mind wander around it. Notice how uncomfortable this feels at first. That's your atrophied intellectual muscles waking up. Step 2. Practice concept mixing, the Renaissance method. Renaissance thinkers were intellectual polymaths, not because they were smarter, but because they deliberately connected ideas across domains. Leonardo da Vinci studied water flow to understand hair movement in paintings. This cross-pollination of concepts is exactly what the algorithm-driven world kills. Here's your practice. Every week, pick 2 completely unrelated concepts and spend time finding connections between them. Last week, I connected sourdough baking with habit formation, the slow fermentation process, the importance of consistent feeding, the way neglect ruins months of work suddenly. I had insights about building sustainable creative practices that no productivity guru had taught me. This works because original thought isn't about creating something from nothing. It's about creating new combinations of existing elements. But you can only combine things that exist in your mind simultaneously. And constant input switching prevents this kind of mental cross-pollination. Try this. Pair a concept from your professional domain with something from nature, or connect a philosophical principle with a hobby you enjoy. The key is to avoid researching either topic during this process. Let your mind do the work of finding patterns, making metaphors, discovering unexpected resonances. Step 3. Build thinking artifacts, the legacy practice. The final step is creating external representations of your internal thought process. I call these thinking artifacts. Documents that capture not just what you think, but how you think. This could be a thinking journal, concept maps, or even voice memos where you talk through problems out loud. The magic happens when you review these artifacts weeks or months later. You start to notice your thinking patterns, your intellectual blind spots, the unique ways your mind makes connections. This meta-awareness is crucial for developing intellectual confidence. Here's a powerful example. For 6 months, I kept a question collection, a simple document where I wrote down every interesting question that occurred to me, along with my initial thoughts before researching answers. When I reviewed it, I discovered I consistently asked questions about the intersection of individual psychology and system design, a pattern I'd never noticed. This insight led to a new research direction that became the foundation for my most original work. Create a simple system for capturing your thoughts. It could be a weekly thinking review where you spend 30 minutes writing about what you've been pondering, or a voice note practice where you think out loud during daily walks. The format matters less than the consistency and the commitment to engaging with your own thinking process as worthy of documentation. 6 months from now, you could be the person you used to be, the one with ideas that felt electric, connections that surprised even you, thoughts that were undeniably, authentically yours, or you could still be consuming other people's insights, feeling intellectually full, but creatively empty. The choice isn't about rejecting all digital input or becoming a technological hermit. It's about reclaiming your birthright as a thinking being. Every human who has ever lived before the last 2 decades had no choice but to develop their intellectual muscles through struggle, uncertainty, and the beautiful friction of not knowing. You can rebuild this capacity. Your brain is waiting for you to give it something harder than endless scrolling, something more nourishing than algorithmic feeding. It's waiting for the challenge of original thought. Start with one question. Resist one Google search. Let one idea marinate for 24 hours. Feel the discomfort of not knowing immediately, and recognize it as the birthplace of everything original you've ever thought. Your mind isn't broken. It's not too late. It's just waiting for you to remember what it means to think. If this resonated with you, there's another video I made about the neuroscience of deep focus that builds on these ideas. But before you click, take a moment. What's one question this video raised for you? Write it down. Let it sit. Your future thinking self will thank you. The renaissance of your mind starts now.